Hi, it's Paula from Pola Quilting. Welcome back to my channel. Today I will be working with my string scraps. I've kind of emptied my bucket now, which is great, so that means I can go back and sew some other shapes. But let me just quickly walk you through this project, and perhaps you would like to do the same. I worked with the scraps of strings which were about 5 inches and above, and that's because anything shorter than 5 usually goes into my adding tape bucket. So I basically picked up as many pieces of strings initially, as many blocks I wanted to make, and then I started sewing one after another, chain piecing until I had about 12 inches long piece. And as you can see, they've got different kind of widths because I kind of gone with whatever the first piece was, and they are not equal. They're just different widths, but the length will be about 12 inches because we're gonna be trimming it in a minute to 10.5. So obviously you want to have a little bit of maneuver. Color wise, I've mixed everything. I really wasn't kind of paying attention what goes next to what. I just obviously they want to have the same fabric, and if possible not even the same fabric repeating, but even if it did, I wouldn't mind either. So they are wider than I need. I need here 3.5 inch, but that's because I've got an idea how I'm gonna use those remaining scraps. So I wasn't worried that I'm kind of over stitching here or making them too big. So I did iron them. I used a little bit of starch to make sure they are kind of easier to work with. Some of those fabrics were thinner than others, so a little bit of starch at this stage when you're ironing it flat makes it easier to work with. So let's trim them now to the size I need. So first what you want to do is trim one of the sides to the kind of clean it, make it nice and straight. So you just find the shortest bit which is sticking out here and you can align against it. It's good to have a bin somewhere nearby you when you're doing that, because there's going to be a lot of trims. Now here I'm just trying to kind of clean up this edge, leaving as little as possible of that left over here. So again, I'm finding the shortest piece here and I'm gonna clean that edge on this side. At the moment I'm not worried what the size is, I just want to have a nice both clean edges. And now I'm gonna trim to 3.5 inch, and that's the strip I need for my main project, the one I will be showing you today. Whatever is left is going to go to my next project, so if you are interested what I will be making out of those scraps, be sure to subscribe. So let's cut it off. So that goes for my next project, that stays for this project, and I will just go and trim all of my stack here the same way. So just clean the edge first, clean the edge this side. Obviously you want to now have those lines parallel to each other as much as I can leave, and then trim to 3.5 inch. 1, 2, 3. Make sure you've got your measurements right. And this strip also goes to my other project, is about 1 inch. At least if it's 1 inch or more, this is 1 inch, it's gonna be okay for my next project. If it was smaller, I would just probably add it to my adding tape bucket and use it there. So nothing is going to be wasted as such. It's just going to go through the cycle of the scrappy project and eventually used somewhere again. I trim all my stack to 3.5 inches, and now I need to trim it to 10 inches wide. Now I've got the ruler which is 10 inches wide, which is quite handy, but obviously you can do it with any size of the ruler, which gives you that 10.5 inch length. So I'm just centering it and just looking on the sides which fabric I like more, or do I like both of them. Then I will keep them as are, and I will just trim from both sides. Now I'm recording at the moment, so it's not very convenient for me. I have to turn around the fabric. Normally if I do on my cutting table, I can just go from both sides without moving it. So you just set yourself up, do it in one go as a batch. what you basically want to achieve is a rectangle made of your string scraps, which will be sized 10.5 by 3.5 inches. Okay, I've got my rectangles ready, and for the next step I will need some contrasting fabric, and I've chosen black. That black fabric is actually a high quality bed sheet which I bought to make a costume for Halloween for my son, and there was a leftover, and to be fair, when I was buying it, that bed sheet, I decided to go for bigger than I needed because I thought, yes, it's gonna be good for my sewing, so just a little bit of thinking ahead. So I've got those, and I cut some of it into 2.5 inch strips, and that will be good size to work from in this project. This stack is from a different black fabric. I don't mind mixing the shades. I think it adds to the kind of scrappiness of the quilt, and that was a black shirt. So whatever fabric you've got, you can use, and obviously it doesn't have to be black, it can be any other color. I would recommend, however, solid and something really nice and dark. Actually, I find kind of working with strings that nice dark color kind of brings those strings, brings the color. So the next thing I want to do is make myself some marks on those strips. So I'm just gonna finger press where the middles are on both sides, and also in this direction. It doesn't have to be precision work, it's just a little bit of here, so I know where I need to start. And I will do 2 blocks at the time, and it's good with this project to work in pairs, and you will see in a minute why. So one and other direction. If it's not visible very well, or you want to use other marking system, you can obviously always use some pins, just put them in the right places. So let's start with this block first. So I've got this black piece 2.5 inches. So I've got my mark here, and I've got my mark here, and I want to be on the left of those marks, about, I don't know, 1/4 inch, just a little bit. I want to see the marks when I've put the fabric on top of it. You don't have to be precise, you just want to see those marks. And I'm gonna piece it with 1/4 inch allowance. So as you can see, I'm using a bright thread to sew black fabric, but that's okay as far as you use quite narrow stitch. If you use narrow stitch, my stitch is set up to around 1/8. It will not kind of be visible on the other side. So I've gone here to the end. I want to keep this piece because I've got a way of using up black scraps as well, so I'm just gonna pivot here to come out of that fabric, but you can obviously go to the end if you don't have a way, kind of, you don't want to use it up later. So that's one piece, and my second piece, I will start from the top part of it. So with this piece I did this corner, with this piece I will do this corner. I just want to have opposite corners done, because the design calls for the opposites, the kind of sides to be processed. So I'm just checking if this short piece will be enough to do what I need to do, and it isn't, so I'll just take different one. The shirt obviously had the shorter pieces as well, so I just need to make sure I've got it long enough. So same thing, I'm on the left side of my markings. I see both of my markings here. That's as far as I need to be. You could go deeper if you like to, but that is enough. So when you're stitching to the end here, just make sure that you actually pass the fabric here. There's a narrow angle here, so you may think you did, but you didn't. So just double check. You can go a little bit further until you're perfectly sure. And again, I will just pivot to come out of that fabric because I want to use the edge of it. Now to speed up, obviously, to show you quickly what I'm making, I will work with just this pair of the stacks, but you will just chain piece all of the pieces together in one go until you've run out of the fabric. The pieces here, the length of those strips are, and I can measure here more or less, will be about 7 inches. With the second pass, I will turn around my fabric and I will do the same thing on this side, but then obviously you want to have opposite corners. So if I've got this corner done here, I will go with this corner here. On this one I've got left corner, top left done, then I will do right bottom. And when we finish, I will show you why I'm working with pairs, because then I'm not confused how many of each I need to make. So let's just quickly sew the other side. Sometimes that fabric at the top, at the bottom can kind of start wrinkling it. Then just lift your foot up, readjust the fabric, and then you can carry on stitching. Okay, so this is what it looks like at the moment. Now when you open it, you can trim it, because you will know exactly where that fabric stops. And that's before I go to the iron board and open them up nicely. So I can trim it here, I can trim it here, just slightly. Obviously I'm not yet very precise here with the trimming, because I need to iron it first. Just to cut off the excess, because if your excess is longer, then obviously you can start using it on another block, which is like this one. This definitely can be used on another block. And the shorter pieces are going to my black scrap bucket, and that will be another project, another tutorial. Okay, now I can take it to the iron, and let me show you how it looks when it's nice and flat. So this is how it looks when it came from the ironing. I literally just open them up, make it nice and flat, and as you can see, there's no white thread anywhere. You cannot see it because that seam allowance was very, very narrow. So now what I want to do is turn it around and basically cut off those extra black pieces here, because we don't need them obviously, and since my rectangle is exactly what I need here, I will just align my ruler with the edges of my rectangle and trim it off. Again, all of those black scraps are going to go to my other bucket to be used in my one of the future tutorials. Now this bit here, we've got two layers now. You can choose to trim it off as well, or you can choose to leave it. I'm gonna leave it. I like quite when the fabric is in places thicker than others, because it adds another dimension to the quilt. But if you like to use up that piece of scrap somewhere else, you can cut it off now, because you've got all your rectangle now nicely trimmed. So let me trim this one. Now I will show you why we did it in pairs and started from different directions on the markings. Okay, basically we want to achieve this effect. They needed to be mirror image of each other so we can create this shape. So I will carry on and do all my stack, and I will pop it on the design board and show you what options we can make out of those blocks. Before I show you my finished project, just a quick reminder where you can find me and how you can support my work. You can subscribe to my website to be notified when new tutorials, products or patterns are released. You can find me on my Facebook page, Pola Photo, or you can join my group page, Pola Quilting with Friends, where we all share work made inspired by my tutorials and answer any questions you may have. There is Instagram account called Pola Quilting, and if you like to share something you made based on my tutorials, please tag me using hashtag Pola Quilting with Friends. To support my work, please like, comment and share when you see my posts or tutorials. Let your quilting friends know about this channel and invite them to the group and subscribe to my channel. If you like to contribute extra, you can use super thanks on YouTube or buying me virtual tea, coffee or lunch available on my page. All links are in the description below. I would like to thank you all for all the support so far and letting me grow in what I do. And here there are my string of black pearls. If you just make quilt out of using just those single blocks, it will look really effective. So how to calculate how many pieces you will need. So each finished part of the block is 3 by 10 inches, so whatever size you want to have in width of your quilt, divided by 3, then you know how many pieces to make, and then the length of the quilt divided by 10, you know how many pieces you need, multiply those two figures and you've got how many pieces you need to make. Now you might need to make the quilt a little bit smaller or a little bit larger if you just want to use those blocks, but obviously you can add borders that will make the quilt to exact size you need, and you just put those string blocks in the middle. So that's the obvious layout, or the kind of most effective, but let's have a look how else we can make that string block look even not necessarily better, but just different. Here I kind of staggered my diamonds. Each row could have a different kind of point of start for the diamonds, so that will make another layout and obviously a little bit of movement there. So that's another option. Let's have a look at the next one. And here we've got a chevron, just rows of those kind of diamonds divided the same direction under the same direction. Looks very effective as well. And then here you've got the same design, just I've put the sashing in between. Again, my sashing here is cut 3.5 to 10.5 because I will be using it in another design, but you can obviously go with the smaller sashing. It's whatever you like, you can customize this design to what you feel like. Now, a few tips here at the end. One, don't try to match those black pieces in the middle, the diamond shapes. This design is not for precision sewing, it's for quick, nice, easy project. So as far as you are putting those black strips on the left side of your markings, more or less in the same spot, you're gonna be fine. Tip 2, I did cut eventually those black strips into 7 inches because that was the best size to work with. And 3, don't forget the black fabric needs to stick out outside of the fabric from both sides for it to then lay out correctly. And it needs to stick out at least the width of your seam allowance, so if you're using quarter, so at least a quarter, but with 7-inch strip it can stick out a little bit more. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and gives you some ideas how to use the strips. I will be making another at least 2 tutorials with those strings. So if you have more in your bucket, I almost cleaned up mine actually, but if you have more in your own bucket, then obviously keep watching. Please subscribe because you will have more ideas how to use them up. Any questions, please use comment section below to ask. Depending on the question, I can add it to the next tutorial or make tutorial on its own. So please ask. Any questions are appreciated. Thank you for joining, thank you for watching, and see you next time.